of what Bitcoiners believe in, it's Bitcoiners are typically more libertarian in sense. They believe in freedom, the right to speak, personal responsibility, sovereignty. And what happened here?
Decentralization.
Decentralization, absolutely. The things that we believe in. But what happened this week? When you're going ahead and you're taking out your political rivalry by using the justice system for some made-up record-keeping laws that have gone beyond their statutory limits and somehow miraculously made them into federal crimes, and now you convict the former president and probably going to put him in prison.
Right. And this is stuff, and we talked about it on our earlier show too, that you take misdemeanors. I mean, have you ever heard of a case where you are charged with one crime and then you come back and your crime has escalated to a felony? Usually you start at a felony and you do your back and forth in negotiations and you come up with maybe you're guilty on a misdemeanor. I've never heard of anybody going to court and being charged up, I guess, if you want to say it that way. And like you say, the statute of limitations, how do you just make the statute of limitations whatever you want? I mean,
that sprang forth from the same voodoo calculus that went into the pandemic management. If you could say that we managed the pandemic the way that we did, then you could make any magic happen, any magical conversion.
Right, right.
Well, yeah, if I'm giving disinformation and lying about stuff and making it whatever I want it to be, then I can do that.
Right. It's just mind blowing. We were talking offline, and I just believe that our country just went over the cliff, and we were on the edge, but I believe we went over the cliff and hanging on by a fingernail or two right now. Haven't gone completely, plunged down into the ravines or in the ocean or wherever this cliff is, but definitely hanging on by a thread.
Kind of a jump the shark moment.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But
there was a lot of people that were on the fence this whole time over these last few months, and they didn't like seeing what we saw. I mean, basically,
Right.
You've got more than 60% of the population believes this was political in nature to begin
Sure.
with. So now you had a lot of people that they could care less that are looking like, dude, this is not the country I grew up in. This isn't America or what it represents.
Right.
So
Yeah.
this just basically added more people to support Trump then.
Oh, no doubt.
yeah,
Yeah.
it
What they
definitely
thought that
seems like.
was going to happen.
And Trump has been coming out lately and saying, hey, I'm not going to let the goon squad of Elizabeth Warren come in and come after your crypto. I'm not going to let her get in the way of your self-custody and your personal sovereignty. That's just not going to happen. And he supports Bitcoin. He's a distinction that we had that was made by one of our previous guests, who was Jeff Pasquino, and made it very clear that we've heard in the past that Trump is a supporter of the dollar. But the distinction was that he's a supporter of the constitutional dollar, not the fiat dollar.
So the constitutional dollar is the kind of dollar that was like tied to gold
And silver, yeah.
the that was mentioned in the Constitution.
Correct.
Whereas and that one goes along more with like the Treasury, whereas the Federal Reserve type of dollar.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But in saying all that, again, we'll bring it back to Bitcoin, and we've been talking about the influence that Bitcoin has and where it stands in this whole election thing. I mean, we've been talking for a couple weeks about this, how there's a lot of money tied to elections. We all know that. There's a lot of money in that whole political realm, but Bitcoiners are seeing freedom and stuff go by the wayside on the other side, and they're supporting people that are for Bitcoin, and Trump is one of them.
Oh, definitely.
So he's definitely getting a lot of backing from those individuals.
So where the crypto voters are getting involved here is in the SAB, that's Senate Bill 121. And that was a bill where it was overturning some of the SEC regulations. And that made Bitcoiners very happy because they were talking about, the SAB 121 repeal. The Senate repeal allows financial institutions to custody Bitcoin on behalf of their clients. That was taboo. That wasn't allowed before. Um, the, the Biden administration withdrew their threat to veto the SAB 121 if it passes, but that's exactly what they are saying they're going to do. And then also approving the Ethereum ETFs. That's interesting. Isn't that? That although we don't like Ethereum, that was something that was necessary to happen.
Yeah, because for so long they couldn't decide.
Yeah.
Nobody would make the call. Is it this? Is it that? Is it this? Is it that? Now we have something.
Well, it's a Bitcoin game theory in essence, and you got to figure out why is this happening. It's on full display, but why? And it's, really it's because we have an election coming up. That's why. This is really what it is.
There's really no why.
It's just amazing to see Biden all of a sudden speaking so positively about cryptocurrency overnight, kind of, sort of.
Well, yeah and no, because he's got to try to win back the people, because I truly think a lot of it backfired in their faces with Trump. I thought they thought that most of the people would go, yay, Orange Man bad. And not everybody went, yay, Orange Man bad. They were, yay, Orange Man good, 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 good. We're going to support him more. We are going to stand up even more for him.
Well, yeah, in that video yesterday of Trump at the UFC that dropped, holy smokes! I mean, you had basically everybody in the crowd chanting USA, FJB, Trump, Trump, Trump over and over and over again. You had some of the UFC fighters actually jumped out of the ring to come out and shake his hand, and
Oh, sure.
Wow.
wild stuff.
There was a recent Gallup poll that found that half of the voters will likely vote for candidates who are informed about the industry, and a third of the voters consider a candidate's view on digital assets before casting their votes. Did you guys see this post on X by Sam Callahan? This is interesting. I love this. Just a few sentences. It says, "I've never met a person who hates Bitcoin as much as someone who loves it."
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why all the risk is on the politicians who oppose it. I couldn't agree with that
Well,
more.
No.
I've long maintained that to know Bitcoin is to love Bitcoin, which is why I want to take this moment to encourage as many people as possible to learn the basics about
Right.
Bitcoin.
Well, that's what we try to do. Sometimes we go over the top and down the rabbit hole, but
Now, what would you suggest, Peter, on
Well-
how they do that?
A lot of people have given this question a lot of thought for a long time, and a strong consensus is on the book called Inventing Bitcoin by Jan Pritzker. And that book is available for free directly from Swan Bitcoin.
That's right.
it is.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes,
So that
it,
would go over the basics.
yes, it does. And if you were to go to swan.com/tokens-radio-show, you can use our affiliate code and get that book for free and get $10 worth of Bitcoin for free just for signing up. Pretty cool, isn't that?
Yeah. And saying
That'd
that,
be great for the people that would be like me who don't even know the basics and are wanting to learn and are interested in understanding the process behind the Bitcoin.
that's what I was going to say. We got somebody that
I was
is
gonna say,
exactly
yes.
the kind of person we're talking
Yeah.
about. So talk to us. What are some of your questions or concerns, or what do you want to know more of?
Well, I think we would start with the basics of what it is and how the process of going into it would be.
Peter?
Well, Bitcoin is a protocol, and it is a computer network. It is, in fact, the most secure computer network in the history of human civilization. Bitcoin is also a currency. It's the hardest currency in the history of human civilization, harder even than gold, which heretofore has been the hardest currency for 5,000 years.
Right.
And it's just like gold. It is, in fact, digital gold that is useful as three different things: a medium of exchange, a unit of account, and a store of value.
Pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Did that make sense to you? Yeah. There's also a national security component of that too, which you might, if we often hear about layer 0, layer 1, layer 2. I would say that would be what a layer 2 concept, if you will, is the national security aspect. There's a Space Force major named Jason Lowry who was sent to MIT to on the military's dime to research Bitcoin and its significance for military protection, because it is considered property, right? So
Yeah,
from a
it
tax
is.
perspective, it's an asset. So it's property.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at what is one of the military's responsibility is to protect our property within the borders of our country, and any other borders that we might have control over is to protect our property. So it would be their responsibility as well to protect Bitcoin mining and those who have Bitcoin, our self-custody, our ability to self-custody. And it would behoove the United States government to even mine Bitcoin. And then we get into the whole electrical aspects of it.
Now you're starting to
I
go.
don't want to
you're-
go
you're-
into I don't want to go into
you're-
rabbit
You're
hole.
almost up to the top of the peak
I'm
now.
just going to kiss it.
Okay.
Just kissing it.
Okay.
But it has a lot to do with the use of energy and the proper use of energy. And I'll leave it right there because that can get very complicated. But energy is a big component of Bitcoin. And we need to use energy to make this whole network run. And so there's a lot of arguments in FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt,
Right.
about is it clean energy? Does it consume too much energy? That type of thing. And I'll leave it right there unless you have some questions about that.
The security aspect,
Yes.
because some people are saying, well, what if it gets hacked?
Oh, great
How-
question.
It's a really good question. I wanted to. Yeah. Well, the only way that it can be hacked is you haven't done what you need to do. You haven't done good, as we call it, Bitcoin hygiene. Because if you leave it out on the internet, yes. But if you don't leave it out there where they have access to it, there isn't a problem. Oh, I guess if you went around blabbing your seed phrases and stuff to everybody or put it online or something, yeah. But yeah.
Let me give a good example of Bitcoin hygiene. That seed phrase that you just mentioned,
Right.
the either 12 or 24 words.
Right.
These words are very important, and these words can only exist in one form: ballpoint pen and paper. And that's it. There's never a picture taken. They're never photocopied. That's it. It's ballpoint pen, paper, period, full stop. That's hygiene.
Now, what is seed phrases?
Well, one of the wonderful parts about Bitcoin is that, just like gold, it's actually possible to possess or custody, technically speaking, your own Bitcoin.
Right.
And this is done through a little piece of hardware about the size of a USB drive called a hardware wallet. When you're setting your hardware wallet up, that wallet will generate either 12 or 24 words. And as amazing as it sounds, your entire bank account is actually stored within words. And
Right.
we actually have one of our producers who escaped a foreign country under duress and carried those 12 or 24 words across a border and was able to carry an entire life savings contained within words, which to us Americans
Right.
is sacred, because that's the first frickin' amendment, baby. Right there is
Right.
words, baby.
All right. But back up. There's private phrases and there's public
Right.
phrases. So you have, again, like two layers. You have to, if you pull it off, you have to know both. Just because somebody has your public key doesn't mean that they can have access to your private
Right.
And so
quote stash.
the public key that you've got, that's the key that I'm going to give you to say,
That's
this
correct.
is where you can send me my money.
Right.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
It's kind of like your email address.
Yeah.
It's
Uh-huh.
okay to tell other people what your email address is,
To
but
be-
not the password to your email account.
Right.
Correct.
Should
Right.
be like a PayPal or Venmo or something.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically the same idea. When you do that, you don't go, oh, by the way, my account at Chase, the account number is, and blah, 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 blah. You don't tell people.
Yeah, here's
that.
my routing number,
Yeah,
mother's
here's my
maiden
thing.
name,
Although-
social
yeah,
security.
exactly.
although those things are prominently placed on a check,
Mm-hmm.
so they aren't really private. Those are your public keys, if you will.
Mhm.
But how do you get into your account privately is to give up those other identifiers.
Yeah.
So-
Mother's maiden name.
That's correct. Mother's maiden
Traditionally.
name, birth date, social security number, all of that kind of stuff.
Well, and all of that stuff now at this point is so out there. I mean, basically
it
anybody
is.
can get your information
Sure,
now.
they
And you
can.
look at all these banks, you have several banks just this week locally that just got compromised. I know personally 3 people right now that just ended up getting hacked and all their money
Sure.
was drawn out of their accounts from the bank. So the idea and concept that the banks are somehow safe is just about as illegitimate as you can get.
And this
Right.
is the beauty of coming back to the seed phrases or the words, is because those are only known to you.
Oh,
Okay?
should be.
It's not known to anybody else. Whereas in the banking industry, it is known to a whole network. Those who have access to their private networks. And so it's not so private because they've been hacked many times. So the only way you're going to get hacked is if your own personal security has flaws in it. And this is why we always say you never ever share your seed words with anybody. And like Peter is saying, if you could put it on paper and bury that somehow in something very safe, or it's in a very safe place for which you feel is safe and locked up and separate from a mobile device or your computer in any way, it's almost impossible to get that.
No, let's take that same scenario. Let's say you're in North Korea and you're going to make a break for it across the border. Well, what you would probably want to do then, you'd probably want to use a 12-word seed phrase, and you would just memorize it.
Yep.
So that in the event that you were caught or captured, that they wouldn't be able to ever get that value away from you, and the rest of your family back home would still have that.
Right.
They can
right.
make another go for it later.
Now, unfortunately, now we're moving into times to where this custody concept, this called the Bitcoin banking part of it, is becoming more mainstream. And there's now companies that can offer those services so that you know that they're in a hardened location, because really all it is digital,
Right.
right? But the access to it is hardened. It's insured, but that company does not have all of the pieces to have access to it. It's called multi-signature. And so with that is like you might have 3 or 4 seed phrases that you need to access that account, and maybe the custodian that you choose might only have to have 2 seed phrases to be able to open that account up to allow you to have access. It's a great way for estate planning, really. But that's probably as far as I want
I
to
was
go
gonna
with
say,
that,
you're
because
starting
that
to
will
climb-
get into the
you're
weeds.
You're getting climbing that.
I just
And we're-
kissed it.
Yeah,
Yep.
you just kissed it again. And with that, we'll probably go to a break. But, yeah, but when we come back, maybe, and I don't know if this is something, Edith, that because you don't know a whole lot,
Right.
is a lot of people say, well, how does it come about? I understand it's algorithms, but how do you make it? Or, how do you touch it?
How do you
That
make
is
the Bitcoin?
How do you make the
That's
Bitcoin?
definitely the questions where a lot of us start off with and wanting to know too. That's pretty much
Right.
a good place to go.
All right, with that, we're going to take a break. You're listening to KCNR, 1460 AM and 96.5. This is Tokens Radio Show, and we'll see you in about 5 minutes.
Experience luxurious bliss with Pinnacle Cultivators, Redding's premier licensed legacy cultivator, exclusively at the Queen of Dragons in the city of Shasta Lake. Pinnacle's carefully crafted, expertly curated flower guarantees an exceptional experience with rare genetics and distinctive flavors, freshly packaged daily for a genuine farm-to-table experience. Visit 5044 Shasta Dam Boulevard or call 530-276-9771 for delivery and hours of operation. Visit queenofdragons.com or follow us on X at the Queen Dragons.
This is Ted Leidy with Northern Firearms Instruction. Obtaining a California concealed weapons license will allow the licensed individual to transport a listed handgun in their vehicle or on their person in public. For application instructions, training, and other information, contact NFI at 530-999-1822 or visit us online at usgunpro.com. This is Ted Leidy, and remember, it's our right and our responsibility.
Tired of the long drive to the airport? Fly from Redding Regional Airport instead and travel the world with one connection with United, Alaska, or Avelo Airlines. Redding Regional Airport is close to home, and you'll enjoy quick check-ins, ease, and convenience. Getting to where you're going is easy. Book your flight from Redding Regional Airport nonstop to San Francisco, Seattle, Los Angeles, and Burbank. Take the vacation you've been dreaming about. Fly with ease and convenience at Redding Regional Airport.
Hi friends, RC here with Tobacco and Brew, bringing you this month's Cigar of the Humidor, Room 101, 14th anniversary. Do you enjoy bold, aggressive cigar profiles? Well, this stick is not for the faint of heart or palate. AJ Fernandez has packed a wallop of a smoke. Get ready, folks. This cigar is a knockout. Get yours today at Tobacco and Brew, Redding, California.
Welcome to this week's Town Hall News Brief. I'm Kibi Johnson, your host, here with the latest local updates. California's Cannabis Cafe bill advances, but hurdles remain. A bill that would allow California's cannabis dispensaries to operate as Amsterdam-style cafes has passed the state assembly, but its future remains uncertain. The measure, authored by Assemblymember Matt Haney, aims to boost the legal marijuana industry by permitting dispensaries to sell food and non-alcoholic beverages alongside cannabis products. However, a similar bill was vetoed by Governor Gavin Newsom in 2023 due to concerns over secondhand smoke and workplace safety. While the revised bill includes stricter regulations to address these issues, it still needs to pass the Senate in order to avoid another veto. If successful, the bill could create new opportunities for the struggling legal cannabis market and provide safe spaces for consumption. In other legislative news, parental notification is in the spotlight again as controversy surrounds a bill limiting parental rights. Assemblyman Bill Asaley faced retribution from Assembly Speaker Robert Rivas after pushing for a vote to end sanctuary state protections for illegal immigrant pedophiles. Asaley's bill aimed to address the release of an illegal alien who raped an American child, which he believes is a consequence of California's sanctuary state laws. The Assembly Democrats voted against the bill, with Asaley claiming they prioritize protecting illegal immigrants, even those who commit heinous crimes against children, over safeguarding American children. Concurrently, AB 1955, which would restrict schools from notifying parents about their child's gender identity changes without the student's consent, progressed through committees despite objections concerning parental rights. Asaley compared his treatment to the legal challenges faced by former President Trump. Moving on from political issues to infrastructure concerns, the Shasta County Grand Jury has confirmed what many residents have long suspected. The Anderson-Cottonwood Irrigation District's ACID infrastructure needs modernization to ensure the region's agricultural future. The grand jury's investigation found that the district's outdated infrastructure cannot meet current challenges. The ACID diversion dam poses maintenance hazards, hinders endangered fish migration, and fails to comply with modern save fish criteria. Faced with limited options, the district's board of directors chose chose to forego purchasing water from the United States Bureau of Reclamation in 2022, leaving ranch and agricultural water customers without access to district water during a drought year. With the grand jury recommending a comprehensive modernization plan by October 2024, the community eagerly awaits the necessary improvements to secure its future. Unfortunately, while some work to protect the region's resources, others are causing harm. College students' blatant littering defiles Lake Shasta's pristine natural habitat. This Memorial Day weekend, approximately 3,000 students from the University of Oregon and UC Davis left a shocking amount of trash at Lake Shasta after partying. U.S. Forest Service officials spent hours cleaning up the mess, which stood in stark contrast to the responsible actions of Oregon State students earlier in May. University officials expressed dismay at the students' behavior, stressing the importance of being responsible stewards of the land. It is crucial for all visitors, especially college students representing their institutions, to take personal responsibility for keeping Lake Shasta clean and beautiful for the thousands of families who visit this cherished regional landmark. Let this serve as a wake-up call that we must preserve and protect our natural habitats for future generations. Thank you for listening to your Town Hall Brief. Become part of the conversation at Shasta Lake Town Hall on Facebook or at Town Hall News on X.
And we're back. I just had to play that. That's kind of a with all the crap that went down this last week. That's just one way for me. So anyway, before we took the break, we were kind of talking about the basics of Bitcoin. Edith was asking some questions, and then I said something about how it's made or whatever.
Right.
And she's like, yeah. So I know that's a question I come across a lot, that they want to know. I don't know how it's made, if that's correct, but how it's produced or what, because they go, yeah, I see that's an algorithm, but what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a SHA-256 algorithm. It's a military grade algorithm. And what it does, I'll try to keep this very
Don't
basic.
be kissing the peak.
I'm going to try not to kiss the hole there, or the rabbit hole, if you will. Correct myself there.
I was going to say something, but
I don't want to go there. All right.
Put a butch.
Yeah. What that is that it's a part of a computer program algorithm that has complications. So really what these computers are doing, there's several miners, computers like this. This is how they used to start, like with on laptops or desktops, but they're more complications and try the answers. And if they get it wrong, they run the algorithm again until the block goes ahead and wins the award. Right?
I'm going to stop.
Please.
That's a key part of how a blockchain works.
Right.
But at its fundamental core, what Bitcoin really is a ledger.
Well, that's true.
And
Yes.
so let's talk about the way that the ledger works
Yes, very
within
good.
the traditional financial system, the so-called walled garden, as we Bitcoiners call it. So let's take a look at, say, Citibank. So Citibank has a number of customers, and they have their own balance sheet, and they keep track of actually all of it on a centralized ledger that's kept at Citibank, and they make backup copies of it. But certainly we're not allowed to take a look at that on any given day through our own computers. It's just it wouldn't be safe or secure, among other things. But what Bitcoin is, it's a ledger like that, but it's the ledger for everybody who has a Bitcoin account in the whole world, and everybody does get a copy of it updated every 10 minutes.
Correct.
And that it's a ledger, just keeps track of everybody's account, and it updates every 10 minutes.
Yeah, but
But it's not answering the question how a Bitcoin is made.
okay.
Right.
Yeah, I wanna
How
pull
one
you.
is made. Okay.
I want
Right,
to pull you
right.
both back
Okay.
in.
Okay.
It's a simple equation. It's a math equation that has to be solved in order to produce a Bitcoin.
Right. And it's called the winning of a block. Okay. And a new block is mined every 10 minutes. Whoever is the winner of the block gets the Bitcoin. Right
Okay.
now,
Uh-huh.
when there's a block reward, you get 3.125 Bitcoins. So the miners work really hard to earn these Bitcoins because it helps pay for their overhead. And that's why you have these huge mining operations where these ASIC computers, and just for those who are on listening, I'm kind of given an idea here. It's about 6 inches by maybe 18 inches long, is about the size of these ASIC computers. And that's all that they do is solve for these algorithms.
So,
So it's like a
see,
math equation that
It
they
is
answer,
every
Yep.
10
and then
minutes.
Whoever gets the answer first gets the Bitcoin.
Correct.
correct.
Okay.
Okay, and because there's a limited supply of them, then the competition is to see who can gather the correct answer faster than anybody else to grab what is out there available at that time.
That's called the block reward. Right. Yes.
Does that
then-
make
Yeah.
kind of
that-
sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Then to Peter's point is that he's talking that it's a ledger. Everybody who is on the network can get a copy of the ledger. And what's happening during these block rewards is that the ledger is getting updated. And so if you were to participate and buy Bitcoin or sell Bitcoin, it's not going to settle for about 10 minutes. This is why it's not currently used as the currency that we have envisioned it to be, although we're working on that. It's called a lightning network. But just to bring it back home to this, what it takes is that 6 verifications. So Peter's ledger is going to have to match my ledger, and it's going to have to match Linda's ledger and David's ledger. And after that is done, and these ledgers, wherever the verification's happening, could be here, could be clear across the world. But the entire network all has to sync together and make sure all of the ledgers are reading the same information.
We all
And
have to say yes.
All have to say yes. You have to have 6 yeses before you can move on. And then your Bitcoin is either transferred to you into your account or you are selling it. Right,
Okay.
Peter?
Oh, I didn't realize that 6 was actually baked into the protocol. My incomplete understanding up to this point was that 6 was a good prudent number to use if you were going to, say, make a major purchase. You want to let 6 blocks go by. But I didn't realize that before that block actually gets agreed upon, there's actually has to be 6 miners that all sign off on it,
Well,
which makes sense.
For that block to be, that transaction to be agreed
complete.
upon. Okay,
Okay.
so that happens within this 10-minute block. Okay, so it's happening pretty fast. Now, sometimes it can take longer for you to get the verification, but on the mining side of things, is the miners verify the ledger. They're the accountants, okay, and they're making sure that the books are good, and then they move on to the next block, and it's so quick and automated.
And so the concept behind it is to, just from my understanding of it, is all of these computers that are connected to the network that are mining, which at this point there's millions,
Right.
those all carry the same ledger.
Yeah,
That's
they sure
updated
do.
every 10 minutes.
They
So
sure
as far
do.
as security goes, it's not like you're just going to be like, I'm Bob. I just turned around and created 100
Right.
Bitcoin, and this is now in my wallet, and it's now on the market. No, all of the rest of these
That's
machines are going to
correct.
say, nope, that's not true. Bob
Right.
doesn't have 100 Bitcoin. Bob has 0, according
That's
to the
right.
ledgers. And,
Absolutely true.
and so from that point on, you basically have a more secure system than just about anything else. Because
Right.
you've got, like, let's say Chase Bank or JP Morgan, which in 2014 they got hacked. All the people, they ended up having their cards. Home Depot
Yeah.
hacked all their cards, everything else. Those are all on one network
Right.
that's only on their computers.
And it's a private network.
Right, and they
Not
don't have
public.
They don't have millions of other people looking at their network, going, you know what, Chase, that's kind of hanky.
Mm-hmm.
Clarify that little hankiness there for me.
David, you just mentioned that it was secure. I'd like to point out how it is that we know that Bitcoin is the world's most secure computer network ever in the history of computer networks. Here's how we know. There's over $1 trillion worth of value in there now, and it's been out there for 15 years.
Right.
And everybody in the entire planet has been attempting to break it and steal it for 15 continuous years. So somewhere about roughly 5 years ago, arbitrarily, everybody agreed, you know what? That is the most secure computer network ever because it's been 10 whole years. Now we have another 5 to lump on that, so there's absolutely no question. It's the most secure computer network
It is.
ever.
Well, and during that same time frame, so I just pulled it up here, you got J.P. Morgan Chase in 2014, one of the largest banks in the U.S., disclosed that cyber attacks compromised accounts of over 76 million households and 7 small businesses, 7 million businesses. Investigations found the attack was much worse, lasting an entire month from June to July. JP Morgan Chase customers luckily didn't suffer any financial fraud as the data breach was limited to names, emails, phone numbers. However, further investigations found they also reached JP Morgan servers by stealing the bank employees' identities.
Okay.
So
that begs a question. Have people lost money on Bitcoin? Yes, of course they have. We all learned about that. That's maybe one of the first things we learn about Bitcoin. Oh, the people who are going through the dumpster looking for the hard drive or the ones who lost their seed phrase. But in every case, in 100% of cases, people who lost their money through Bitcoin did not practice excellent Bitcoin hygiene. That's what failed.
true.
The
Yep.
hygiene failed.
Right.
Bitcoin has never failed.
That's right.
So would you say that to start, figure out and memorize a way to keep good Bitcoin hygiene?
Absolutely. And you have to, the first part about Bitcoin hygiene is reading, inventing Bitcoin. You have to understand what it is you're keeping clean.
Right.
mhm.
Now,
Okay.
I bought a book for my granddaughter. It's called Bitcoin for Babies. And it explained the blockchain. And it showed it in puzzles. And so when you have a block that has been verified, you'll have a puzzle piece that fits together. But if you have a transaction that can't be verified because of somewhere along the line within the transaction, it was rejected, that puzzle piece, which is a different shape, will not fit together. And the blockchain is simply a chain of blocks that have been stuck together, kind of like a puzzle piece. And you can't break them.
Yeah, you can't change them. Once they
Right.
make the chain, you can't take them apart
Right.
and go, oh, I don't like that anymore. I want to put a different piece in. It doesn't work that way.
It's pretty cool. It's simple, but it's so simple. It's like when we learn something new, and it can be as simple as can be, but it's so hard for us to grasp that because it's new to us.
Right.
And it's a pretty simple concept. Where it gets complicated is the aspect of somebody trying to affect your hygiene, your crypto hygiene. That's probably the most complicated part because you intuitively know how to take care of your banking
Right.
stuff, right? And you don't go out broadcasting, hey, here's my security phrases to get into my bank account, and I'm going to give you my security code and all of that for my credit cards. You just don't do that. But people with getting involved in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency kind of get lax with it because of the ease and use of being able to use it on your cell phone, and that's where you get into trouble with it.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to
Right.
pick up my cell phone is, especially, I would say, younger generation like you guys are
Right.
comparative to us old people, is we don't always look at our phone as being able to access. I mean, I know, Dave, you are, but for the most young people, they don't think, they think it's all good as long as it's on my cell phone and I got my cell phone, there's no problem. But
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
true.
I want to take this moment to make an important public service reminder. Part of hygiene for all of us is our email. Our email is like
goodness,
our baby, and the password to your email is so precious. So I want to encourage everybody to learn about how to keep your own personal email super secure, and then do it.
Two-factor authentication is an
Right.
absolute
Yes, it is.
must. If you do not have two-factor authentication, so for instance, one of my personal emails, I am notified that there's about 16 attacks per day of somebody trying to break into my email from
Right.
another country. If for some reason they do end up successfully guessing that password, they then have to spoof my phone number, which I also keep really close to the chest. Most people don't have it. You can actually get a Google number for free
Sure.
and give that out to any of these organizations that are asking you, like your Papa Murphy's, where they're like, you need to be able to pick this number, like your anything that's not important. You go to a hotel and you spend the night, they need a phone number, they need the rest of that. That's what you give the Google number for,
Good point.
instead of the number that actually will start tracing back to you.
Yeah. Good
Yeah,
point.
and you probably don't want to use a Gmail account. I mean, they're rather
Proton Mail is
yeah.
excellent so far.
Proton Mail is terrific.
Here's another piece of hygiene. Your relationship with your cell phone carrier should be such that if you do lose your phone and do need to get another phone, your account should have a specifier that requires you to go physically in person and show an ID in person, and you can't do it over the phone or over the internet. And that's a huge protection, whether or not you're into crypto.
Oh, it sure is.
Well, and that's a big one, and it's a lot of people don't have an understanding. I don't need to have physical access to your phone in order to spoof your phone number and in order to gain access to that. And a lot of times when you're visiting sites, and they can be sketchy sites, they can get your IMEI numbers from that, and based upon that, they can get all the information
Right.
from your phone. And so a lot of people that don't have these two-factor authentications, they find themselves then at the point to where, okay, I just got hacked, and most of these phones nowadays, like Android, right? They store all your passwords, and most everybody does it because it's convenient.
Right.
But now they have access to that. Now they can get into that. Now they not only have your phone, they have your 100 and something passwords that
Right.
you've used over all of this time. And it was so simple that all you had to do is do a two-factor authentication.
Now they have domains that you can use that are set up for using on Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, like unstoppable domains. It is a blockchain domain, and it helps simplify so that you don't have to remember this long string of numbers. Because what we didn't talk about earlier is when we mentioned the seed phrases, that's like super secret, just for you to know to get into your wallet. And that you can get into if you lost your wallet, for instance, you could take those seed phrases and recapture your Bitcoin on any wallet with that, which is really cool. It's unique to you. But what you can do with these domains is that, what I was going to say is that most of the addresses, when you say, I'm going to send some Bitcoin to David, it's going to be a long string of numbers. It might be a 1X,
The
A,
public
B,
key.
C, D, E, F, and from 0 to 9, and up to maybe 24, 36 characters. It's very long. You're not going to memorize that. So what you can memorize is like an unstoppable domain where you have a unique domain name. And it could be very simple. It could be, Christie's wallet, and it would be like .crypto or something like that. And it's going to be hardened. It's going to be what I give out to other people to be able to transact with them. A lot easier than that 36 character string.
Yeah.
I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a listener right now, because all of this crypto hygiene stuff sounds so daunting. Oh my God,
Yep.
I'm not going to do that. What am I getting myself into? But wait a minute, stop for a second. Every member of society is required to have a cell phone. If you're a homeless person, you must have a cell phone to access homeless services. So we all have to have cell phones. We all have to have email addresses. We have to interact with government services. So now you've got a cell phone and an email address. Whether or not you do crypto, you have to practice all of this hygiene. Now, since you have to practice the hygiene anyway, that's 90% of the work. If you just do your basics, now you're 90% pre-qualified to do Bitcoin. You're almost ready to rock and roll.
Well, and the next big thing too that I really think people don't have an understanding of is these banks are pushing CBDCs, which is the exact same thing, but without the protections.
Correct.
It's still
That's
under a
right.
bank, and they're
Correct.
doing it on their own servers, so inherently it's far less secure.
Right.
And it's going to be the same exact type of thing, just with them tracking you and judging you based upon your purchases. So like you already see these banks, if you purchase firearms, if
Right.
you purchase alcohol, if you purchase any of these things they deem to be unkind or uncouth, then they ding your credit score based upon your social credit score. It's very dark stuff.
It
Already
is dark stuff, and that's why using cash is very important. Is don't get away from using cash. If you go completely digital, is what the bankers really want you to do.
Well,
And
and
they
it's,
don't.
it's so much easier, and it's very scary. So
It
like
is
recently,
scary.
I just this week, I ended up leaving my wallet at home by accident, and I ended up putting a card onto my Google Pay. I always thought it's got to be a little closer. I pull it out and I touch the app. I'm not even down there on the actual
and-
machine. I'm 3 feet away from the thing, and it just accepted.
Yeah.
Payments done. It's clear.
Oh my goodness.
But I do want to add something to all this for Edith and new people out there, and even other people. Is I will say one thing about Bitcoiners in general is if you come to somebody and I still do it. Will you hold my hand?
Oh,
I
yeah,
want
for
to do
sure.
this transaction get it off of this exchange or get it from this point to this point. Most all of us will say, sure, I'll help you with no problem. And I still do it, which I got to do something because I'm still a little afraid because I'm not geeky or techie. I'm always afraid I'm going to do
Yeah.
something wrong and lose it. And I don't want to.
And you don't
Right.
use it all the time,
And I don't do it all the
Right.
time. Yeah, I don't use
Yeah.
it all the time.
which is a good point because this is where meetups really come in handy. You know, this is why meetups have popped up, is where you get people who have who enjoy this concept of Bitcoin and learning more about it. And there's Bitcoin meetups all over the place. We have one right in Reading called the Reading Bitcoin Meetup. Bunch of great people. It's a good place to go and meet, have some pizza, beer, or whatever the case is, and you talk about Bitcoin. And you learn all kinds of things, and there's all different skill levels. So that's one of the first places Linda and I went when we were starting to learn about Bitcoin. We drove all the way down to Lodi to go to a Bitcoin meetup and
We
go,
sure
what
did.
is this thing? And it was that
We
was
made some really good connections.
we did some
Yeah.
good friends, and they held our hand for whatever question we had. They were there to help because they went through the same thing.
Yeah, they don't look at you, oh, you're at level, 1 and I'm at level 10. So,
And they
you
had
know.
to, and gosh, and they had learned from when times were even more scary than it is now, because now it's somewhat more mainstream. Much more adoption has happened, but gosh, some of these folks were from the very beginning of time, and it's like there were no devices really to store information on. Like now we have these wallets, we have mobile devices, which is not really safe, but nonetheless, there are cold wallets, which means simply they're offline. And they just didn't have those before. A lot of them were just using flash drives.
Right.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
unfortunately, we've all, as Bitcoiner, have lost some money or something and learned the hard way. And those people learned really hard because they had to lose something in order to figure it out.
That's right. Yes.
Unfortunately.
Right.
So, what do you guys think that this is actually going to be something that's going to be a lot more like the main thing in the coming future? And
Yes.
how would
Yes.
what would one Bitcoin equivalent to a dollar be? If a U.S. dollar?
Would be what it was the market?
Well, right now, 67,572 United States dollars equal one Bitcoin.
Actually, it's
Yeah.
gone up since then. It's
Yeah.
67,802.60.
So to equal a dollar, at this point, you need a converter, because dollars is counted as satoshis. There's 100 million satoshis in one Bitcoin. So it would be similar to us knowing pennies and nickels, but it's just one unit, which makes it simple.
Right.
So we'll have to talk about that
Yeah,
another
you have
time.
to have you back
This is
or call
great.
in or something and come back and join us again. We want to
Thank
say
you so
thank you for
much.
coming in.
Thank
Of
you
course,
very
we
much.
appreciate you guys.
enjoying the afternoon with you folks. So with that, we will see everybody next week.
Have a great weekend.
Much about him, but he